I never asked for trouble. All I ever wanted was a patch of quiet, just some soil to work with and a view of those hills my dad and I used to hike before he passed. That land, 4.5 acres of wild, stubborn earth, was the only thing he left me. No inheritance, no house, just ground and memory. But for over 20 years, that dirt was enough. I built a small cabin with my own hands, tended a garden, watched a chestnut grove grow from my father's old saplings, and I finally found something close to peace, until the HOA rolled in. 3 years back, they started carving up the far end of the hill, called it Whispering Pines Estates, though there wasn't a single damn pine tree, just a bunch of dried oaks and a steady supply of rattlesnakes. The place was everything I didn't need: gated entries, perfect sidewalks, lawn inspections, and the kind of folks who call the cops if your porch bulb isn't LED. I wanted no part of it. Made that clear when their president, Karen Jennings, showed up in citrus perfume and white sunglasses, holding a clipboard like it was a badge. She wanted me in the fold. I wanted her off my porch. I shut the door and figured that was the end. For a while it was. I kept to myself, fixing fences, listening to birds instead of lawnmowers. But last fall, I noticed surveyors on my land, pounding orange stakes into the soil my dad. And I walked 100 times. They claimed it was for Lot 36, scheduled to pour the foundation the next week. I took their map and saw they'd shaded a piece of my chestnut grove. But the lines were wrong. I knew every inch. There were stone markers, old iron pins set deep by the county. I told them to check their facts. Next thing I know, cement trucks are rolling in, and by the time I got back from the county assessor's office, they'd poured a foundation for a house, half of it on my land. Karen reappeared, smiling with all her teeth, promising generous offers, and telling me my map was wrong. That night, I sat up by the fire, feeling my dad's words echo in the dark. A man only loses what he gives away without a fight. So I fought, dug up the old markers, took photos, GPS coordinates, the whole 9 yards. My army buddy Damon came down, now a land surveyor, and together we mapped every inch. Turns out, Karen's crew didn't just mess up, they drew the plat wrong on purpose, shifted the line straight through my chestnut grove. It wasn't just greed. It was arrogance. That's when the real war began. HOA citations started appearing in my mailbox, accusing me of trash, broken fences, unapproved exterior colors, on a cabin that's been brown since 1998. Karen's lawyer, a smug guy named Trent, tried to lowball me with an offer for half an acre, less than it would cost to fix the damage. When I refused, things got uglier. My irrigation line was smashed, my mailbox pulled up, my trash left uncollected. The county zoning board sent a notice saying my land was now disputed, and I couldn't farm or build until the matter was settled. But I wasn't alone. Marcy from 2 streets over knocked on my door, shaking, holding citations for a non-compliant porch railing on her 50-year-old home. A firefighter, a young couple with a baby, even old Hazel with her pumpkins, all targeted by the HOA, all feeling helpless. We started gathering stories, tracking violations, turning my living room into a war room lined with maps, legal filings, and drone photos from Damon's survey. Then came the twist. An anonymous flash drive showed up in my P.O. box. Audio of Karen and her board plotting to redraw the plat, bury me in paperwork. Even joke about sending Trent to scare the old-school types. That was the break we needed. Our lawyer filed it with the court, and suddenly, everything changed. The judge scheduled a public hearing. I posted flyers, built a website, Stop HOA Abuse. Org, and word spread fast. The town showed up in force. In court, our case was airtight. Historical surveys, satellite photos, even the HOA's own insurance report admitting they'd built on disturbed, unauthorized land. Karen tried to play innocent, but when the judge asked if she'd ever received written permission to build on my land, she couldn't answer. The ruling came down hard: immediate eviction from the house, damages for me, and a referral for criminal fraud. For the first time in months, I breathed easy. Karen melted down in court, called me a hermit, swore she'd make me regret it. But she was finished. Her lawyer handed me a notarized apology and a check for damages. The house sat empty for months, then went to auction, and eventually, the demolition crews rolled in. I stood on my porch, arms crossed, watching as they tore it down brick by brick. Picked up a piece of tile, buried it where my father's last tree had stood, and planted a new sapling. Chestnut, of course, because some things deserve to be made right again. Neighbors came by, curious, grateful, some even asking to bring their kids to see the fence that fought the HOA. Hazel brought cornbread. Someone left a note. No signature, just hope the land forgives me, even if you don't. The HOA board dissolved. A new one was formed, smaller, more neighborly. They asked if I'd join. I laughed, told them I had trees to plant and fences to mend. And that's the real ending, or maybe it's just the beginning. Not vengeance, not gloating, just the quiet comfort of reclaiming what was nearly lost. I didn't want to win a war. I just wanted to hold on to the one thing my father ever truly gave me, a place to belong, roots that run deeper than any plat line. In the end, you don't fight for dirt. You fight for dignity, for the right to draw a line in the earth and say, this is mine, and I'll protect it. So tell me, where would you draw your line? Where does justice end and revenge begin? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll be here, watching the chestnut trees grow, right where they're supposed to be. So you want to know what happened? Next, after the house came down, after the dust settled, and most folks thought the fight was over, truth is, the real work started once the courtroom went quiet and the news crews packed up. I got my land back on paper, sure, but the scars on the ground, and on the people around here, those stuck around long after. You'd think peace would be easy to settle into, but honestly, those first weeks felt like living in a house that still echoed with the memory of a bad argument. Every sunrise was a little tentative, as if the land itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what I'd do next. The new chestnut sapling out by the old stone marker barely came up to my knee. Sometimes I'd kneel beside it, thumb the dirt around the roots, and try to believe it would really last this time. The HOA, well, they weren't dead, they just got quiet. Karen Jennings was gone, but her shadow stretched long across the neighborhood. There were whispers at the feed store, murmurs at the diner, stories swapping hands like old coins. Everyone had an opinion about how far things had gone, or who had won, as if there really was a winner in all this mess. That fall, I kept to myself more than usual. Fixed the back fence. Cleared out the stumps where the bulldozers had torn up my dad's old trees. I bought a battered wheelbarrow off an old vet down the road, spent a week moving fresh earth by hand, trying to convince myself it was just a job like any other. But every shovelful was a little heavier than it should have been, carrying the weight of everything we'd all just been through. Then one chilly morning, just before Halloween, a new face showed up at the cabin. A young woman named Tessa, maybe 30, hair pulled back, eyes sharp and wary. She'd just bought one of the smaller homes at the edge of the old development, right where Karen's empire used to begin. She stood awkwardly at my gate, a box of donuts in her hands and a look on her face like she was waiting for a dog to bark. "Mr. Harland?" she called. I'm your neighbor, I think. At least until the next lawsuit." I almost laughed. Invited her in for coffee, and before I knew it, she was telling me how the new HOA board was scrambling, trying to untangle a dozen messes Karen left behind. Unpaid bills, lawsuits, missing funds, and a handful of homeowners threatening to sue the board for fraud. "I grew up in Houston," she said, "but I came here hoping for peace and fresh air. Guess I picked the wrong neighborhood, huh? Or the right one," I said, "depending on whether you like a good story." That conversation with Tessa was the start of something I didn't see coming. A slow wave of neighbors who'd kept their heads down during the fight, now finally venturing out, asking questions, wanting to know how to protect what was left of their own ground. Folks who'd once glared at me over the fence now stopped by for advice on boundary lines, or to borrow tools, or just to talk. It felt, for the first time in a long while, like the community was trying to heal itself. But of course, nothing around here stays calm for long. About a month after the demolition, someone started tossing anonymous flyers in folks' mailboxes, bright, official-looking, warning about rogue landowners threatening property values and impeding neighborhood progress. They weren't signed, but you could smell the old HOA playbook all over them. A couple of the older residents started getting nervous again, worried that fighting back would only bring more trouble. That's when Damon stepped back in, this time not as a surveyor, but as a neighbor. He started hosting weekend land clinics out of my cabin, walking people through their deeds, explaining in plain English how to read a boundary survey, what rights they really had. We made big maps, pinned them to the wall, and invited everyone who wanted to see how the lines really worked. No more secrets, no more games. Kids played in the yard while their parents sipped coffee and learned about setback distances and plat maps. Some of them left with more questions than answers, but at least the fear started to fade. The real twist, though, came in December. The county announced a new review of all zoning and development permits from the last 10 years. Said it was standard, but everyone knew it was a reaction to what had happened here. Suddenly, folks who'd never cared about plat lines or public hearings were lining up at town hall, demanding to know if their homes were legal, if their taxes were right, if anyone could just redraw a line and take what was theirs. It was chaos for a while, rumors flying, realtors panicking, local politicians scrambling for cover. But out of all that noise came something rare: unity. I watched as neighbors who'd never spoken before joined up to form an unofficial landowners association. Nothing fancy. Just folks watching out for each other, sharing notes, comparing letters, making sure nobody got steamrolled the way I almost did. Funny thing, I even found myself on the committee. The guy who'd once sworn never to attend another meeting with a coffee urn and stale cookies. But there I was, helping people draw lines in the dirt, teaching them what my father taught me. Respect the ground, and it'll respect you back. Of course, not everyone was happy. Realtors grumbled about negative publicity. The bank that held the old HOA's accounts sent a lawyer to one of our meetings, all sharp suit and cold smile, warning us to avoid defamatory language. Tessa made him coffee and handed him a flyer about boundary rights, never breaking eye contact. That got a laugh from the crowd. Even I had to grin. By spring, things finally settled. The land looked different, scars still healing, but new shoots coming up everywhere. The chestnut sapling had grown 2 feet, leaves wide and bright. I saw families walking by, pointing out the new fence, showing their kids where the battle happened. I built a bench by the south line, right next to the marker my dad set all those years ago, and sometimes I'd just sit there and watch the sunset, feeling, for the first time in a long while, like maybe I belonged. The biggest surprise? One afternoon, a plain envelope showed up in my mailbox. Inside, a single line typed on clean paper. I hope the land forgives me. I'm working on forgiving myself. K. No signature, but I didn't need one. I tucked it in the box with the others, reminders that everyone's fighting a battle one way or another. Some days, when the sky is clear and the wind smells like cut grass, I catch myself wondering if any of this was worth it. All the stress, the legal bills, the nights lying awake staring at the ceiling, counting the minutes until dawn. But then I look out at the trees, the fence, the neighbors who now stop and wave, and I remember, justice isn't always neat. Sometimes it's just doing the next right thing, again and again, until the world remembers where the boundaries really are. So, if you're still listening, let me ask you, how far would you go to defend your roots? Where do you draw your line? If you've ever stared down a bully or stood up for something small but sacred, let me know in the comments. I'm still here, chestnut trees and all, and this story, well, it's yours as much as mine now.